and we'll get started. We'll have some fun here. So it's going to start a little timer so I can see. Well, thank you for having me. We're really excited to share with you guys today. And like we were just talking about, we're pretty much neighbors with the YMCA. We're right down at the end of North State Street. So it's a great location to be. And we're excited to see people going in and out of there a little bit more these days, which is good. But like she said, I'm the owner with my wife, Sammy, of Connect Family Chiropractic. We're going to talk today about a topic that we're really passionate about. We love to share. It's posture, it's ergonomics, and then it's just overall health and wellness. That's really what we love to do in our office. I want to first give you guys just a little background into who we are. I always like to know who a speaker is and kind of what their story is. So this is me and my daughter, Adeline. She's 18 months old. And so she is just a ton of fun. And that's who Sammy's at home with right now. I believe she's hopefully napping still. We'll see. And then Sammy is actually pregnant with our next child. We're due in May 17th. And we don't know if we're having a boy or girl. We're going to wait to find out. So you guys will have to stay tuned on that one. But that's our family. Like I said, Sammy and I own this office together, and if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have an office. She is absolutely a fantastic partner, so I'm thankful for her. I'm born and raised in Bellingham, as is my wife. We both went to Western, and I did kinesiology there. I then did my chiropractic college at Palmer in Florida and Daytona Beach. So it was a little sunnier than we get here in Bellingham, which was nice, but we're Pacific Northwest through and through, so we missed it and wanted to get back here. And then this July, we actually opened up our office. So we're celebrating about 7 months of being open here, which has been really great serving the community we're so passionate about. So a little bit about our office. We do a really special technique called chiropractic biophysics. There's a lot of great chiropractors in town, but we really focus on ergonomics, on posture, and that's an area we just specialize in. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today. But we're also a true family practice. We see infants, prenatal, all the way up to teenagers, and then all the way into what we consider geriatric population. So we really do see a well-rounded group of people, as long as some sports, and then we are experts in whiplash and auto injury. So we love to help anybody that is looking for help and wants that. So what we're going to do today, dive a little bit into our vision, and then we'll get to the good stuff as well. So one of our visions, and why we're so excited to do this today, is just to be deeply connected with Bellingham. We want to have a place where people can basically live their lives health burden free, not preventing them from doing the things they love, achieving the dreams that they've always had. And so giving talks like this is really part of our mission and our vision. So huge thanks to the Y for allowing us to do that. I just want to do a quick little thing about chiropractic education. Would you guys, I'm going to ask for some participation, by the way, today. So raise your hand if you have any idea what it takes to be a chiropractor. Anybody? Probably not, I would guess. Not really seeing many hands. Okay, so just a little bit of intro to you guys. The reason I talk about this, I was coming back from chiropractic college after my second quarter, sat next to a really nice gentleman on the plane, and he said, "That's cool, you're becoming a chiropractor. That's got to be like 12 to 18 months of schooling." And I was like, oh my goodness, here I am. I've already done a bachelor's degree. I'm in the first of 4 more years of school. It comes out to about 8 years total, costs upwards of $150,000, and it's basically 4 national boards. So it's a really in-depth process. None of that is said to like brag, but what I do want people to know is that there's a lot of rigorous academic work that it takes to become a chiropractor. And so when you go to one, whether it be us or anyone you go to, you can feel really good about that. Okay. So that's just to educate people. I said in that moment, I was going to make sure people knew what it took, because 12 to 18 months is pretty different than 8 years. So enough on that. We're going to talk about health today. That's what we're really passionate about. We really have to define it. And so I love this picture that we have on here. Basically, health is not just 1 or 2 things. It's a bunch of different things that go into it. And it's going to be something that takes a well-rounded approach to really give you true health and wellness. And I love the definition from the World Health Organization. They say health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease. And so just because you don't have like a disease or you don't have a sickness that other people will see, doesn't mean that there isn't something else in your life that could be healthier that's playing into that. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. We're going to try to hit on some today, but we're going to really focus in on posture and ergonomics and just kind of how the body works. And so quick anatomy lesson for you guys today. I promise I won't bore you with too much anatomy. Sammy made sure that I wasn't going to do that. But I do want to go through something really quick. So if you can see my mouse, the way the body works when I look at this spine over here is the brain is going to control absolutely everything in our body by sending energy from the brain through your spinal cord, out these nerves to all your organs, cells, and tissues. Okay. So that spinal cord is essential to our overall health and wellness. And because it's inside the spine, if the spine has posture issues that oftentimes look like bad posture or pain or dysfunction, it's actually going to affect more than just how we feel. It's going to affect all these organs, these cells, these tissues. So when we talk about posture, we talk about ergonomics, it's not really just about pain or how you feel. It's more importantly about how you function. Okay. So does that make sense to everyone? Give me hands up if that makes sense to you. If you can see that, okay? Perfect. Thank you. So one of the things we're going to look at today is just a little study. This is just a little bit more proof to what I'm talking about. This was something out of the Journal of American Medical Association. What they found was postural deviations. They didn't just lead to pain, they led to an overall poor quality of health and wellness, and even sometimes a shortened lifespan. So that just goes to show you it's more about function, the way your body works, the way it's being closer to its optimal, ideally. That's what we care about most. So what is a good posture? Now, there's always variations. Not everyone's going to be the same, but we do have a normal that's going to be healthier for you to be around. So from the front, and you guys can kind of think about yourself and how you stand, but your head should be relatively square over the chest. Chest should be square over the hips, hips over the ankles. And then from the side, and this is maybe the biggest one, we're going to talk about this a lot, but when you look from the side, ears should be over the shoulder, shoulder should be over the hips, hips should be relatively over the ankles. So you like those to be as straight as lines as possible, because then gravity doesn't have any extra hold on you. Once again, just give me a hand if that makes sense to you guys. Cool, perfect, thank you. So those are the ideal postures. So when you look at your day-to-day life, whatever it is you're doing, you want to stay as close to these as possible. Okay, so that's going to make it a lot easier for you. So one of the things we'll talk about is ergonomics. So we're going to talk a lot about computers, which I know you're all using computer, iPhone, tablet, something of that sort currently. So we're going to talk about the ergonomics, because if we have bad ergonomics, we're setting ourselves up for poor posture and therefore some poor pain and dysfunction. Okay, so let's talk through the ergonomic stuff. So computers are a big one. How many people are spending a decent amount of time on computers right now? Just give me a show of hands. Yeah. Looks like just about everybody is doing a lot on computers. The pandemic has certainly not helped that, but even prior to that, that trend was increasing, right? Like just our life has gone more into technology, our phones, our iPads, our computers. So a couple of notes for the low back. You want to have a nice support. So you don't really want to let yourself slouch in the low back. It'd be great to have something like a rolled up towel or some sort of pillow that supports that low back. It's going to go ahead and give it the support that it needs to not be broken down. When it comes to the arms and the wrist, we basically want to make sure that they're not extended too far from our body. That puts stress on your shoulders or your elbows. So they should be relatively close to your side. And then you want about a 90-degree angle. Let me see if I can make this so you guys can see this a little better. You want about a 90-degree angle when you're using your keys and your laptops like this. You don't want it too high or too low. That'll put extra stress on you, okay? So when we take a look at this person over here on the right, you can see we would love to have this nice straight posture up and down. If they had an ear, you would see that it's relatively over the shoulder, okay? You would see that that's relatively over the hips, so that's good. You can see they have 90-degree angles here and then at their knees as well. So those are all going to be the least stressful positions for the body. Does that make sense so far? Cool, perfect, thank you. And then the big one. So if you guys take anything away, I would probably say that the monitor and the height of your monitor is going to be number one. So when you look at a screen, you should have roughly 1/3 of that screen above your eyes and 2/3 below. Okay, so if you were to look at like a book or anything, piece of paper, 1/3 of that should be up above your eyes, 2/3 of that should be below. The reason we like that is because it makes it so you don't have to tilt your head down to look comfortably at the screen. We want it in a position where you have to look straight ahead so that that head isn't coming forward in front of the shoulders, okay? So number one, make sure that screen height is up. And we're going to go over laptops in a little bit because I'm sure some of you guys are using those quite a bit. Number two, you don't want it too far from your face. You guys have probably experienced this. If it's far away throughout the day, you kind of start leaning further and further into it. It's not very comfortable. It's hard on your posture. It's going to be hard on your body and your overall function. So no more than 18 to 24 inches or an arm's length away. So if you put your arm up, you should be able to see how far that screen is. That's going to allow you to make sure when you sit, you're going to be upright. To look at your computer, you can't really afford to slouch. Okay, give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Awesome. So that would be probably the two biggest things. And also, I love if the monitor is directly in front of you, so you don't have to turn from side to side as well. Okay, if you're really tech savvy and you've got multiple monitors, then there's a couple other things that we'd have to talk about. But for most of us, right in front of you, 2/3 below the eye, 1/3 above, and then not too far from the face. So those are the biggest ones. Now laptops. Show me your hands if you're using a laptop currently. Okay, I'm getting a lot. So the problem with laptops, you'll notice that the keyboard and the screen are connected. So there's no way to make them perfectly ergonomic, right? If the screen is correct, like we just talked about, you're going to be typing uphill like this. It's going to be hard on the wrists, on the elbows, on the shoulders. And if the keyboard is correct, it's at the right level. Now you're going to be coming forward to look down. Okay, so the only way, and what I recommend with laptops, is to make them like a little, like a mobile desktop, essentially. So you can do a couple things. If you don't want to buy a stand, you can use some books. I'm sure everyone has some old books they haven't looked at in quite a while that would raise your screen up very nicely. So you can grab some books. I think we have like 3 of our old college textbooks at home under Sammy's laptop. She's probably using it currently right now. And then the other thing is if you can get a detached keyboard and mouse, if you guys can see my mouse here, that makes it so it's like a little desktop so that you're not going to be violating all those rules that we talked about. So one of the things is laptops can't be ergonomic if you don't do, I think I just saw someone go get a book and raise their screen up. That's amazing. That's good work, Becky. That looks great. So that's awesome. So if you guys can do that, that's going to make a really big difference. So I would really recommend that you take a look if you're using a laptop and see what you can do. I always joke, I don't like going to coffee shops. It gives me anxiety because you go in there and there's people on laptops for like 6 hours at a time, especially students, and they're just hunched over. So don't be that person. Take a look at this and make some changes, okay? So that's probably one of the other biggest things if you take anything away from this. Cool. I'm going to go ahead. We'll ask questions here in a little bit. So if you have questions on that, make sure you save those. This is another big thing. I've noticed that the amount of time we spend in front of the computer has increased quite a bit. And so what I always recommend is you need to take breaks. Okay, it's really easy to get sucked in and to stay on there for hours at a time. But what we want to do is about every 30 minutes, you want to take a break, stand up, move around. I always recommend drinking water. We'll talk about that more, but do something just to reset your body. What I think is interesting, they've done research on this, and some people, especially if you're working or if you're just trying to get stuff done, they'll be worried that that will basically limit their productivity. What they found, it's really cool, is it actually leads to a reduction in your fatigue, low back discomfort, and it didn't change your amount of productivity at all. Okay, so taking more breaks, allowing yourself to be fresher, more clear mentally, you're actually probably going to get more done. You're going to feel better and you're going to be happier. Okay, so if you're like a go-getter, a driven mindset, I love that. This is actually going to help you perform better. And what's cool about this picture, it's maybe a little hard to decipher, but I'm going to do my best to explain it. This shows the pressure on the spine at different positions. So I want to focus in on this person sitting right here. Hopefully you guys can see that. This is a good sitting posture. So they've got about 150, we call it intradiscal pressure, that's going to be on their spine. If they were to slump forward, if you look to this one up higher, it goes up almost basically double in what it would be. So that's the difference between slumped over, seated, and sitting in a better posture. It really puts a different amount of stress on your spine. So that's why I recommend you have your ergonomics and everything set right. So I'm just going to check in because I know it's a lot. Thumbs up if that makes sense for me. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So we'll keep cruising there. Here's a section where I kind of go through other places in life that you may be making a bunch of mistakes. One that we're going to start in up here in the top left, driving. Okay, so if you're spending any significant amount of time in the car, I don't know what it is, but people love to have bad posture in the car. You either shift to one side all the time, or some people you'll see are really slunched over, their head goes really far forward. This is an area we would love to improve. So those same rules apply. Look at that ideal posture that we talked about. See if when you sit in your car, if it's actually close to that. And if it's not, you can make adjustments to get yourself closer. Okay. And luckily in Bellingham, we don't commute as much. When we used to live down in Seattle, this was even a bigger problem. But I do recommend everybody check this out. Make sure that they're basically sitting in a healthy way. Looking at this top right, do we have any readers in here? People who like to read? I'm sure. Yeah, cool. Awesome. So yeah, Becky there in reading. I love it. So we do a lot of reading in our household. This is a tough one. People love to read in bed. They love to basically prop their head up with as many pillows as possible. I understand that that's the easiest way to read. What's better for you is if you can actually sit kind of straight and prop your arms up on some pillows so that you can have a nice, comfortable way to look straight at the book. Or if you're really brave and you want to lay flat on your back and risk dropping the book on yourself, you can do that too. But I have done that drop the book on me. It's not super comfortable, so I just have a warning there. But if you're going to do a lot of reading, extended amount of times, I do recommend you take a look and make sure you're not doing anything that's shoving the head way forward. Okay, that will put some extra stress, how to put extra tension on there. So that's a big one. This picture right here of the little girl on the phone, it's actually interesting. We see a lot of kids in our office, and we're seeing kids for a lot more issues that we wouldn't typically have seen most likely 10 or 15 years ago because of the technology use. They're on iPads, they're on computers, they're on all sorts of things. That's not necessarily always bad, but when they hunch over like this, which I see a lot, they're putting stress on their spine that traditionally would not have been there. And it does cause a lot of problems. So whether, and this doesn't just apply to kids, I'm going to talk about phones in general, but I always say that's a good area. Like if you have grandkids or kids that are you see doing that, you want to help correct that as early as you can so that they're not growing into those postures. Okay. So with the phone use though, how many people use their phone quite a bit these days? Give me a hand there. Yeah, absolutely. Quite a bit. So I see a lot of people, you look straight down at it. It's not very comfortable. It's really tough on the neck. So my joke is, it's not a great joke, but my joke is always when you're using your phone, other people should think it looks like you're taking a picture of them. Because then you know that you're kind of using it where you're up straight, just like you would if you took a picture of somebody. That way you're not going to be putting that stress on the neck, body, or your overall health and wellness. So that's another one that we're seeing huge increases in issues with. So check yourself on your phone, check out the kids that you're around, make sure that they're not making those mistakes as well. We want healthy kids to grow into healthy adults. The other big one I'll say, I'm going to go to lifting last because that's a big one, but I love this picture down here in the bottom right of the person on the couch. If you love some Netflix show or whatever, we're creatures of habit and we have patterns. And so usually you probably lay on the same side of the couch in the same position every single time. So I always joke and say, if you're going to have bad posture, at least reverse it and have bad posture the other way so we can offset it a little bit, okay? Or ideally, you find a better way to do it. So if you love whatever your favorite show is, if you like binge watching it, just make sure you're doing that in as healthy and ideal a posture way as possible, okay? The last one, I'm going to give you 3 rules on lifting that I think are really important and good. So basically the first one is when you lift something, if you bend down to lift it up, obviously you guys have probably heard you want to bend with your knees, but when you grab it, it's good if you look up. We say eyes to the sky. If you think of like an Olympic power lifter, when they grab the bar, they're going to look up. It stabilizes our core, it stabilizes our body, helps us make sure that we don't bend forward and put too much stress on the low back. So first one will be eyes to the sky. Second rule is that you want to keep any load as close to your body as possible. Okay, you guys have probably been bowling before. You all know what a bowling ball feels like. So if you were to hold a bowling ball like this, it's pretty easy. If you hold it out in front of you, it's a lot harder, right? So it's the same thing. If you can keep any load close to your body when you're lifting, that's going to really protect that spine and that core. So we want to keep it as close as we possibly can. And then the last one, this might be the biggest one. So this is really important. We say you want to keep your nose between your toes. So what I mean by that is if I pick up a box and I need to put it to my right, I don't really want to rotate, keep my body square, but rotate, because that's going to put torsion and torque onto the discs in our spine, and they don't like that very much. So I actually want to move my feet and keep my nose between my toes so that I'm not putting that twisting force on my spine. That will take a lot of stress and pressure off of it. So do those 3 rules make sense? Give me just a hand up if that makes sense. It's perfect. Awesome. So if you remember those when you lift, and it's hard to do it every time, but if you kind of remind yourself, that will make you safer. That will make a big difference for sure. So those 3 rules, super important. And then also, I'm going to just, because I have some time, I'm going a little bit faster. If you are really into a certain type of exercise, that's great. We're going to talk about exercise. But you just want to make sure that whatever you're doing, like if you're a cyclist, I know it's so funny. People who cycle tend to like be really into it. They'll do like 100 miles. It's crazy. But those are certain ones where you can see it can have some stress and tension on the back and the neck. So just evaluate what maybe you do for exercise. I'm sure the Y does not lead you guys astray. They do a great job, but it's an area you want to make sure you're not putting yourself in a posture that's going to be tough on the spine as well. So we're going to talk more about exercise here in a second. But some of the benefits of strong posture, like we talked about, your muscles are going to be more relaxed, your joints are going to be healthier. Actually, this says less arthritis on here. I read a new research paper today that talked about how your posture and your spine, the position of it, is directly related to how much arthritis your body develops. It's not just always a natural aging process. There's a way you put stress on it and things like that as well. So it is really important. Increased energy, less headaches, better overall health. So those are all just really great things. So what I want to do is just take a couple minutes here and open it up to see if you guys have questions about the ergonomics, about posture in general, before we cover just some other general health and wellness tips that we like to talk about. So I'll just give a minute here or so for people to ask any questions that they have.
I'll go ahead and unmute. So if anybody wants to just do a shout out.
Okay, so this is Gloria, and I'm wondering if there are any guidelines to position while sleeping.
That's a great question. And I didn't put that in here, but here's kind of my general rules of it. Sleeping on your back or your side are where we tend to see the least amount of issues. I see the most like neck and back problems with people who are stomach sleepers. So if we can avoid that, that's good. What I like to say is two things. When you sleep on your back, you want to make sure, like the reading, that you don't have a pillow that's shoving the head way forward. Okay, your head should stay relatively neutral, shoulder over, ears over the shoulders. So that pillow ideally will support the neck curve that you have naturally and allow you to be relatively in alignment. So don't do like the 2 or 3 pillow thing that I see some people do. When you're on your side, you want to make sure that that pillow is going to cover from the ear to the shoulder, so you're not tilting down, or that it's too high that you're tilting up. So we want to keep everything relatively neutral. That's just going to put the least amount of like stress and strain on the muscles and the joints. You're probably going to sleep better and you'll probably feel better as well. So those are kind of my 2 big rules. Does that make sense to you, Gloria?
Sure. What about the lower part of the body?
Yeah, so a couple of good things you can do there. Some people sleep really well with like a little support in the lumbar spine and your low back while you're sleeping on your back. That's totally fine to do. Or put a pillow between your knees. That actually brings a lot of comfort as well to people, helps with the hips and the alignment there. So I would say probably those are the biggest ones. And then, you know, we get a lot of questions about mattresses. Everyone's a little bit differently, but certainly if you've got a 30-year-old mattress, it might be time to take a look and see what else is out there, what could be used.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the question. Do we have any other ones? Cool. Looks like we're all good on questions.
Yep, it looks good.
Cool, perfect. So we're going to talk just through some other health and wellness stuff. If you guys have more questions at the end, I'll take some more time for that as well. So one of the big things that we preach and talk about, in fact, in January, we do like a challenge every month. We're calling it a Love Local Challenge. We're supporting local businesses, encouraging people to support their favorite local spots. So one of the things we did in January, though, was we did a water challenge. This is probably an area that one is super easy, super cheap and affordable for us to make a big impact in your life. So I'm curious, who thinks they're drinking enough water currently? I'm getting a bunch of head shakes. Okay, and then a potential there. So yeah, most likely we don't do a good job in general of this. It's not easy to remember. So a couple of general rules that I like to tell people on water. How much should you drink? There's a lot of different sources and things you can look at. A lot of ways you can count fluid, but I like to just say, hey, pure water. This is where we see people to function the best. If you drink half your body weight in ounces a day, so if you're 200 pounds, you drink 100 ounces a day, which is probably quite a bit more than you are, people tend to function and feel much better. Okay? Now, you don't have to hit that perfectly, but that's a good goal. And what's I've found is if I tell people to drink half their body weight ounces, they're probably going to drink a quarter. And so I always aim as high as we possibly can and encourage you guys to do that. So that's the first one. Why does it matter? Water is a huge part of our body, 60, 70% of our body. Some sources might even say a little bit higher, but nearly all of our systems are going to rely on it. Okay, it's super important for what we do. It's good for our kidneys. It affects our energy levels, our brain function. There's a bunch more on that. But one of the things I notice people right away when they increase their water is that they'll feel less soreness and they'll have better energy. right away. It helps flush inflammation. It helps basically reset the body. So I would really encourage you guys to get a water bottle. I think that's what I found to be most effective, is just have a water bottle, know how many ounces it is, and then say, hey, I'm going to drink 3 of these a day. Okay, that's kind of the easiest and best way to do that. So water, super simple, but if you implement that and drink more, you will definitely feel the difference. Exercise, and this is what the Y obviously does really, really well. They've got great programs there for you guys, which I think is awesome. And so I want to take a look here and say, how much does it take typically? So how much do you need? Some people get intimidated by thinking you need to go crazy, join a CrossFit gym, do all these burpees. It's not really the case. Research shows us that 150 minutes of light or moderate exercise a week really makes a difference in your cardiovascular system, the way your body functions, the way it feels. So that really could be walking. That'd be, 30 minutes, 5 days a week would really satisfy that. So it's not something that's going to be extremely difficult for you to do, most likely, but it will be really important. Now, you guys probably know a lot of this, but when you exercise, it's going to increase your energy levels. It really helps with anxiety, depression, mental health stuff, because it just allows for an outlet. I think that that's one of the most important things, especially in today's day and age. It's a very interesting time. Helps with our learning and our memory as well. So the types of exercise, probably the number one question that I get asked when we cover this topic is, so what should I do? I think this really depends on what you like and what you enjoy. So what I always tell people is find something you like to do. Okay, so I know our good friend Tara, she's not on here, but she teaches a lot of fun classes at the Y. Some people love that. I'm sure they have lots of options. So just find whatever it makes you happy, brings you joy, and that is going to help you move, and just do that. So for some people, that might be walking. It might be playing basketball, might be weightlifting, biking, dancing is definitely not my thing, but I'm sure some of you guys love that. So just do whatever makes you happy, whatever is going to help you get those 150 minutes of exercise a week. And don't really stress about, what it is. That's my best advice. We're going to do the things that make us happy and that we enjoy. Does that make sense to you guys? Cool. How many of you guys have something that you really like to do that you feel like you're maybe getting 150 minutes or at least quite a bit throughout the week? Show me your hands if you think you're getting that. Love it. I knew I was talking to the right crowd for that. That's great. And then sleep is another one. This varies as you age and things go on, but just some general rules that I really like. How many hours? I always recommend people shoot for 8 hours of sleep a night. Your requirements go down as you age. But if you shoot for 8, that's a really good way. Yeah, Maggie's saying she disagrees. You still need 8 hours, Maggie, is that what you're saying? Okay, good. That's good. I love sleep, so I'm hoping that I will always need the 8 hours. But I always recommend to shoot for 8 hours. I just see people feel and function a lot better. It's really good for a lot of things, obviously for your energy. But what I see is for immune function, memory, things like that. It does make a big difference. You can find that in the literature and the research that when you sleep and you have good quality sleep, it makes a big difference in those areas. One of the things that I think is really interesting is that when people are chronically deprived of sleep, they are more likely to have anxiety, depression, and mental health things just because their body can't function the way that it needs to. Okay, so it's a reset, allows your body to clean itself up. It's a really important part of the day. And one of the other things, it's not on here, I took it off this slide, but I want to hit on how many people use like technology before bed? Anybody use like a phone or a Kindle or anything like that currently? I'm not seeing some people. Okay, yeah, there's a couple. So one of the things that I caution with is you don't want to use too much technology before you go to sleep, watch TV, things like that, because the blue light has been shown to really mess with our circadian rhythm and can affect the quality of your sleep. Okay, so I always recommend, like, before you go to bed, give yourself a couple hours of just lower lights, not technology. Try to let your body kind of feel like it's ready to go to sleep. If you're going to read, I like to just read like a paperback book. It really helps me go to bed. And this is another area where if you guys know kids that maybe have sleep issues, or just you want to help them be healthier, they are addicted to phones a lot of the time, and they do it right up until bedtime. And then I hear all the time that they're not sleeping well. So I always recommend you want to try to get off the phone before bedtime, at least a couple hours, to let your body kind of reset and get used to, the darker lights and get the circadian rhythm correct. So that's another area that I recommend, for the kids that encourage them to improve that in their life so that they can be a little healthier as well. So the nutrition side, this is, I think, the last slide I have on. So we're getting kind of close to the end, but as far as nutrition, We could talk about nutrition all day long. You could find a million different opinions. I keep it really simple on this area. I don't like to dive too deep into it. So a couple things. Why does it matter to eat healthy? Obviously, the cells in our body, they're constructed by the food and the nutrients that we put in there. So who's heard you are what you eat, right? Like that's a common saying. There really is some truth to that. We're going to take the food, the sources that we have, and we're going to create ourselves and the makeup of our body. So I do always recommend you want to eat good quality stuff. You're going to feel better. You're going to function better. I'm sure a lot of you guys are already doing this very well, but just some basic things that you can look at. One of them is I recommend everybody supplements with vitamin D. You can find a lot of different opinions. You can find a lot of different information on this. But when you live in a region like the Pacific Northwest, where when the sun's out because everybody's outside like trying to bake in it, even if it's 60 degrees, we don't get much sun. We don't have very intense of our sun rays. And so we don't get as much vitamin D. So pretty consistently, research shows that everyone in our region, in the north part of all of Canada, Alaska, is deficient in vitamin D. And one thing that's really interesting here is with COVID, kind of bringing it back to more relevant times, COVID has been found to have a huge correlation as far as poor outcomes with people who are deficient in vitamin D. Okay, so it's one of the number one things, and this has been in a lot of research articles and journals. So I do recommend that you guys look into vitamin D. You can decide what levels are best, or if you have questions, you can let us know. Is anybody currently supplementing vitamin D? See, cool. I love it. I'm getting a lot of thumbs ups on that. So you guys, maybe I'm preaching to the choir there a little bit for you guys, but share that with your friends and family. It's a really important one that I like people to know about. And learning and memory is a big one with nutrition. We want to be giving our brain the nutrients that it needs. So how do we make these healthy choices? A couple easy rules that I always give people. One is I always recommend you read the ingredients and the nutrition labels. I think it's really important to know what you're eating and what you're putting in your body. And so I like to read them and see. What the kind of joke of is if there's a million things on there that you can't say the name of or it looks like confusing, it's probably more processed and maybe not something you want to eat. Not that you can't ever eat it. That's not what my goal is to tell you. But I just, in general, love to know what we're eating, what we're putting in our body. So I think that that's a really good rule. We try to eat all organic foods to limit the toxins and the pesticides and things that are very prevalent in our farming and our society in today's age. So we also try to do that. Those are a couple of really good rules for you. Another one is many fresh fruits and vegetables as you can. I think that we tend to sell the importance of those in our diet. Most people don't eat enough of them, especially probably the vegetables. Fruit tends to taste a little better, so we eat a lot of fruit, but the vegetables we fall short on a little bit. So that's another area I always recommend. Hey, just take a look. Are you getting a balanced diet of fruits, vegetables, and some other things? And then my absolute favorite thing with nutrition is just try to limit your sugar intake. Okay, we have sugar, unfortunately, in a lot of our products today. Sometimes people are a little startled when they start reading labels about how much sugar really is in things. Now, it's okay to eat some sugar from time to time. I like sugar. I'm not going to pretend that we don't ever eat it. But what's interesting is that sugar has been linked to a lot of issues that we see, our chronic issues that we see today. In fact, they're calling basically type 3 diabetes is kind of what they're calling Alzheimer's like a type 3 diabetes. That's the best way to put it. They think there's such a connection between sugar intake and memory and brain issues like Alzheimer's and dementia that they're calling that essentially like a type 3 diabetes. And so that just goes to show you that's an area you want to just be cautious of. Okay, you don't have to be perfect. The goal is never to scare anybody, but just take a look and have an idea of what you're putting in your body in that regard. And then as far as a rule, I like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you want to eat good, clean, healthy, follow those things. And then 20%, you got to live a little bit. Yeah, okay, if it's National Pizza Day, National Donut Day, certainly you should probably eat some pizza and a donut if that's your thing. Whatever you like, enjoy it. I always joke, if you go to Italy, I'm hoping that you eat gelato. So that's totally fine to do. You just want to have some balance in your life. I think the 80-20 rule gives a lot of grace for that. It allows you to enjoy yourself, but also just to make sure you're making healthy decisions. So that's everything I have on the nutrition side. This is actually my last slide. One of the things that we'll do, and I'll open up for questions here, but when we give these talks, we have so many people just want to know how they could ask more questions or come into the office and see us. So what we decided to do, just because people were so curious about it, we basically said, let's just do a fundraiser for the YMCA because we think it's a great organization. So if you or a spouse or anyone you know is interested in coming in, basically to get to know us more and what we do for people, We would basically give you a consultation, exam, any necessary x-rays, report of findings with me, just going over your individualized care. What I would recommend, we're just going to charge a nominal fee of $50 for that. But what's cool is we're going to donate any of those $50 fees back to the Y. So if anyone's interested, we would love to help you out. Or if you just have questions, my wonderful wife, Sammy, set this up. You can just text posture there to our number and someone will just reach out to you. No pressure, obviously, on that, but there were so many people that wanted more after the talks, and we just wanted to offer that. So that's a great option for you guys. I'd like to give you a chance to take that down, but also to ask any other questions. So I'm going to open that back up. We can unmute people and see if you have any questions about anything we talked about or just any questions for me in general.
Yeah, everybody's able to unmute, and if you have questions.
Yeah, I have a question.
There's
Yes.
When you talk about water, clear water, that goes back and forth almost, you know, like everything counts. Only clear water counts. Everything. So how about things like ginger tea and?
That's a great question.
So if I try and drink what I want to drink as far as teas or something, and then that water on top of that, you know, I'll be peeing all night and I won't be sleeping.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a good point. So I think tea is great. I would count tea as water for sure, especially if you're just doing like some good, you know, not adding a bunch of sugar or anything to the tea, just kind of straight tea. The reason I kind of caution and go more like clear water is I have a lot of people be like, what about coffee? Does coffee count? Or Gatorade or some other energy drinks? Not that those don't count towards fluids, because technically they do. Right. Just people feel and function much better when they stick to water or teas. Actually, we drink a lot of tea in our household. That's a great question.
And then my other question is about the blue light, and I got some of those, you know, yellow glasses, and I tried those for weeks, and that did not change my sleep at all.
Okay.
And I think it's hard for those of us that struggle with the sleep thing, because the more we hear about it, the more worried you get that you're not sleeping well, you know.
Totally.
And so it kind of adds up. But so I was just curious. I was surprised that didn't have more effect. Like I was wearing them from about 7 o'clock until I went to bed. But anyway.
Where did you get those?
It's been long enough, I can't remember, but it was a friend recommended it, and they were really working for her. So
gotcha. And what I've found is that not all blue light blocking glasses are created equally.
Sure.
And so I would recommend you could try another pair and maybe do some research online of like highest quality or something. Some of them let through more than others do. And so maybe for your threshold, you needed something that was going to block more. So that might be another option for you, just to look into a different pair as well. They do have some like, I've seen people you can print out like a tester and try the glasses on and see how much it's letting through with the color. So that might give you a little bit of another avenue to check out as well.
Okay, because you run into classes you used to go to live, I am now doing on Zoom in the evening, right?
Totally.
So,
totally.
Okay.
It's not a perfect world, right? But I would, absolutely. That would be my best recommendation. If you can't avoid them, try to find something that helps you with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Well, I was just going to say, time spent in bed does not necessarily equal time sleeping.
Yes. Yeah. There's a quality element to that as well, right? Like we want to have good quality sleep as well.
But to me, it seems like an unachievable goal to not look at any screens 2 hours before you go to bed. And usually in the evening when you're winding down, that's what we do these days, right? I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Point is well taken, but I don't think I can't aspire to that.
And that's okay. That's, we got to decide what we can live with and what we can't live with. So you might be a great candidate for some blue light glasses.
Well,
Maggie, did you have a question?
I do have. I'm wondering if you have anything you would suggest for arthritis in the fingers.
Yeah. So there's a couple questions I would have on that, right? There's different types of arthritis, and kind of you might have different recommendations, but what I find is, and this may or may not be the case with you, but just some very light, gentle, like motion exercises, especially throughout the day, can help keep them moving, the joints moving, and allow them to not have as much pain or discomfort. The other things that we really love are some anti-inflammatory things. So I see people who are supplementing like fish oil. That can be helpful from an anti-inflammatory perspective, turmeric, things like that. Or I've seen really good results with like CBD creams. People will utilize those, depending on what your thoughts are, opinions on that. But those can be very helpful. My mom actually has rheumatoid arthritis. And we got her some creams and things to use, the CBD ones, and that has helped her quite a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. We could probably dive into that more, but just on the short, that's probably the best way to answer that.
I suppose water is a good thing too, probably.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And if anyone is curious, you can see my daughter. If you go look at Sammy Murray's screen, there's my beautiful daughter, Adeline, right there.
You want to say hi, Adeline?
She loves to join on Zooms.
She woke up and was excited to see Dada. So
Oh.
Can you say hi? Yeah. Hi, Dada.
Hi.
Can you wave? Wave to Dada. Hi.
Any other questions that you guys have? Cool. All right. Well, like I said, if you have any more for us and you want to ask us questions, feel free to reach out. But we're really thankful for you guys allowing us to do this talk. We feel humbled that you let us do that. It's part of our mission, our vision. So thanks for your time today. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully you all got something beneficial and we'll take something away from it. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very informative.
Good.